All right, sitting out here. I like to sit out here sometimes and just listen to the birds and just watch them fly around. There's red birds, hummingbirds, mockingbirds. Uh, Pretty fortunate. We get a few different birds around here. You can even tell if you listen to the birds, they're different sounds. It means they're different types. And what's funny is we have a few woodpeckers around here, and I mean the birds. And it's funny because you can hear them, and sometimes it actually sounds like someone's knocking. It's really hilarious. My kids, when we first moved out here, they would hear the woodpeckers on the trees, and they would go and check the door, and they'd be like, "Someone's knocking, and there's nobody at the door." And of course, what happened is they would open the door, and the woodpeckers they would stop, and then give it a little while, they'd start again. But I always thought it was funny with the kids when they were little. But anyway, let's get to what we're going to talk about today. So we're going to talk about this, not particularly this unit. I don't have the unit I'm really trying to talk about. This is an airlift system. You put it into the radiator. There's an adapter, and you can supposedly, the concept was you can vacuum the system down, and then you can reverse it, and then with the vacuum in the cooling system, you can refill the system, cutting down on your air pockets. And it did work. It does work good on certain applications. For example, a small automotive unit, small automotive cars, things that don't take a lot of coolant. But when you get into the big stuff, when you get into the industrial, the Class 8s, the medium duty trucks, heck, even some of the big, 350s, 3500s, whatever you want to call it, they have a large capacity system, especially the diesels. So we get into airlocks, and then of course the other problem is, like for example, if someone buys a truck and they decide to add you know, um, a bunk heat, and they're going to run heater lines all the way to the back. Well, now you're adding capacity, you're adding something to the system that's not engineered. And today's modern trucks, they've got EGR coolers, and they've got other things in the systems that when this came out, it wasn't on those trucks. Just out of curiosity, are you guys aware that there's a fill rate? There is actually a fill rate. In other words, regardless of the size of the system, I don't care if you're working on a Toyota Corolla, I don't care if you're working on a QSK 95, which is a 95 liter locomotive engine. I don't care what you're working on. There is actually I was trying to find it. I have it written down somewhere because we went to class, they talked about it. If you're refilling a system, it has to take the water. And here's the tricky part. However much you remove, it has to take all of it back within X amount of time. And if it doesn't take it in within X amount of time, that indicates you have an air pocket. Like let's say you have, let's take a QSK 50. A QSK 50 will take about approximately 50 gallons of coolant, depending on how it's configured. Well, you have to put 50 gallons of coolant back into the system. I think it's under 10 minutes. I have to go look. I'm trying to find it. I can't find it. And if you don't do it, or if the system tops, in other words, it won't take no more because it's overfilling, then that means you have an air pocket. And the same thing with a car. How many times have you filled a cooling system, drained it, then you got to go fill it, and then you have half a gallon or a gallon left over. What that is, you have an air pocket that's about the size of a gallon. So either you need to find out how to air bleed it, or you need to, read the procedure on how to remove the air pocket. And I think young technicians, I see it over and over. They're in such a big hurry, they don't do it. And then what's even more sad is service writers don't take that into account. I'll give you an example. And we're going to talk old school C15 Caterpillar. I did an M-frame on a C15, and it paid 40 hours, and I think I took like 45 well, I forgot what the reason was. Oh, I'm gonna have to make a second video on that. So anyway, I remembered why it took so long. So anyway, I go ahead, as per Caterpillar in Cat Sys, it tells you start the unit, you let it idle, and you monitor it for 15 minutes. Just let it idle 15 minutes. At that point, you go check the coolant level. Okay, and you're supposed to be having your Cat ET or your infrared, and you're monitoring, making sure you have an increase in temperature in the block. You want to see, I always measure around cylinder 5 and 6, and you want to see a gradual increase of temperature. And then they tell you to go ahead and idle it up to about 1200 RPM for 45 minutes and just let it run. That's a whole hour. That's a whole hour. And this is a old C15 Caterpillar. Now, the new engines, when we went to school, they tell you start it, you let it run, and if it takes 3 hours for it to however long it takes for that thermostat to cycle, you want that thermostat to cycle. Given if you're in cold climate, hot climate, if you're in hot climate, that thermostat's going to cycle fast. If you're in cold climate, you're going to have to figure out how you can get that engine to heat up, either disconnect or you know what I'm saying, you use the laptop, you use bidirectional command, and you disable the air actuator for the fan clutch. But you know what I mean there, right? So you want that thermostat to cycle, and then so my whole point is this. There's a guy named Wes. He has a channel. It's called Watch Wes Work. And the guy has a very interesting channel because he works in all kinds of stuff. He works on forklifts, really old equipment, trucks, cars. It's an interesting channel. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend you go over there and you follow him. Well, Wes put up a link for the newer style system, which it'll do both. It'll evacuate and it'll refill using the shop air of a cooling system. And now I know that tool that he put the link to, if you go watch his video, I think it's under $57, 56 something, and he has a link on Amazon. And I'm pretty sure if you use his link, you'll get a little something, or maybe you won't. I don't know. I don't know. The guy is really, he seems down to earth. And like I said, I really highly recommend you watch his channel. Watch Wes Work. But anyway, it made me think of this topic of air bleed. One is if you're a mechanic, be sure that service writer is giving you at least an hour to bleed the cooling system. And if he says he can't do it, I'll guarantee you, especially you guys that are working on heavy equipment, you guys that are working on big trucks, and I'm pretty sure if you go look hard enough somewhere, I don't care if it's, whatever kind of automotive car, there's gonna be a bleed procedure. And if there's a bleed procedure, there's a service time. You know what I'm saying? There's an SRT if there's a procedure for it. So be sure you're getting your credit for bleeding the system. Anyway, we fought over it long time. My service writer wouldn't want to pay that air bleed time. And I told him, well, how come you can't pay it? There's an SRT, and it's called out in Caterpillar and Cat Sys. It's also called out in Cummins Insight. It's also called out in, Diamond, International. It's also called out in Detroit. Oh my God, Detroit. If you guys have ever messed with a MTU, let me tell you what, guy. An MTU, even though it has bleed screws, will literally take almost two guys, getting after it. 3 guys working on an MTU, just trying to bleed the system out is a minimum of 2 hours to do it properly. And they put bleed screws everywhere for you, trying to help you get all that air out. Another one that's really hard is if you ever work like on a commercial bus, like a CCI, you know what I mean? One of the 59 passenger buses. They have such a big cooling system because they use, the heat. And some of the CCIs, boy, I wish I would have taken video when I used to work on them. Some of them have little furnaces on the bus. They actually have diesel fired Like some of the over the Class 8 trucks that have the little small ones, they use diesel, and they have a little burner with a fan, to push hot air in, to heat the water. I'll tell you what, some of them buses, they have those diesel fired furnaces on the buses because they're so big, and they want it to be comfortable. And tell you what, you want to talk about a long procedure. 59 commercial passenger bus. You ever do one, you're going to be there at least for 4 hours bleeding the air out of the bus. And and I remember, we went round and round, me and my service rider, because he didn't want to pay me 4 hours for bleeding it. So anyway, that's a whole different story. So hope the video makes sense. Hey, leave a comment. How do you bleed air? Did you know about the service times? Did you know about the procedures? Do you know that even an old school Caterpillar is at least a minimum of 1 hour bleed time as per Caterpillar? And it's a big thing. It's a big thing. I know a lot of people, they just say, oh, we'll just drive it. It'll bleed itself out. No, especially now, with EGR coolers, you could drive that thing from here to Houston, which is 203 miles one way. And you're going to get there. You're going to have an air pocket that's creating a hot spot. And then you're going to blow a head gasket, because that hot spot is it's going to take something out. Anyway, shop talk video. Hey, leave a comment. Thanks for watching.